If you ever get frustrated with an old person or you see an old person acting stupid, I used to get so mad about that. I like, who is this idiot? What's going on with them? Now that I'm like, dude, I'm about to be 30. I'll be 35 in May. If you asked me to do an algebra question, I would just shoot you at this point. Don't you be handing me a math problem with letters in it. There's letters and there's numbers, and we keep them separate. And when we don't, I get mad. Dude, playing Wordle now made me understand why my dad would get mad at me when I needed help with homework. I'm sitting here like I barely know how to spell. And I'm like, how you play this? Yo, this shit's hard. I'm gonna go back to Halo. I didn't have to spell nothing in Halo, yo. There was no I don't have to spell a gun. I'll just press A. I know A. So I see it on a button, I can press it. That's a good video game. Otter? Let's fucking go. Dude, I remember I had a band teacher when I was in like elementary school, not even middle school or high school, but I had a band teacher in elementary school that was damn near like he was kind of on Whiplash level. Like if you've ever seen Whiplash, he was up there like that, dude. I remember this man throwing a music stand across the room at somebody's head because they messed whatever thing up. Elementary school band class. This man is launching music stands at children's heads because they missed a beat. Insane time that the 90s were. We get into a lot here tonight about nostalgia and kind of what comes with that and my thoughts on things like that and what we're kind of seeing currently with society right now. Because, I mean, like, look, let's just get this out of the way. Let me preface this before we go any further into this. I think nostalgia is a poison that has been let into the waters of this country, at least, if not the world. But I really think nostalgia is nothing new. People have always been nostalgic. The concept of it is in no way new or anything new. But the level at which we are at with it today is just absolutely horrendous. And I don't understand how people aren't more embarrassed by this. I don't understand how people can't be embarrassed to like want to live in the past 24/7. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference between having an interest or maybe you like the aesthetic of certain things so you wear, but like people who legitimately like their whole life, their whole entire being is dedicated to talking about look, it's 1982 or 1992, pick your poison, whichever one that they were born in or anything. And look, I'm going to level with you. I will be in May I will be 35 years old. I was born in 1990, right? So if you want to talk about like the 90s, early 2000s, being a young person during all that, I was the perfect time. I was born 1990. I was born at the exact right period to be in for like all of that stuff. I was there for all of it, right? Trust me, you take the good with the bad. It really, I feel like it's just like any other generation. I feel like a lot of times have been romanticized. We've had a lot of resurgences of people having interest in different generations. There was, I mean, in like the 2000s, there was like an 80s resurgence. There was also weirdly like a swing resurgence in like the late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know what was going on with that, but I have to think there are probably still dudes walking around who are into that. Like there were dudes who were that right formative age during like the cherry poppin' daddies when they had their moment. And these handful of guys throughout our society, they're walking with us. These guys do exist somewhere. Those guys saw Zoot Suit Riot once and they were 14 and they're like, well, I mean, that's just it for forever now. This is just me for life. That guy does exist. You can go out. That's your little scavenger hunt Pokemon Go mission of the week. Somebody find me one of those guys. Somebody find me one of those guys and I can have him on the stream or we can just sit there. Something. I need to talk to that man. I need to talk to that person who is in a permanent state of adolescence and it just happens to be the swing revival from like 1998. You know what I mean? I need that dude in my life, not sexually. Maybe sexually. I don't know. I haven't seen him yet. If you've look, let's find him. We'll see what he looks like and we'll go from there. I'm going to imagine the Zoot Suit's probably not going to do too much for me. I don't think I'm crazy about that. I don't think I'm crazy. Yeah, a zoot suit was basically, if you don't remember, a zoot suit is basically what it would look like if a 1930s mobster decided to dress like Soulja Boy in 2005. That's what is that. That's all a zoot suit is. That's all it is. I don't know. Anyway, let's get into it. I've been yapping for long enough. Let's start this video.
I like old things.
Yeah, I got a couple grannies in my roster.
I have 7 film cameras, an NES, a
We are not on the same wavelength. I'm sorry.
rotary phone, a bunch of records.
Hello, I'm Johnny K.
My parents' old cassettes. A book of
That's a wild move. Vinyl, I understand. Rocking the vinyl and still doing the vinyl thing, I actually completely get that, and I think there's validity to that. But in 2025, if you're sticking with cassette, if you're still rocking the cassette deck in 2025, that's a wild move.
mechanical movements, devices, and appliances from 1907, and a phonograph.
Why do you need a phonograph? I get the vinyls, sure the cassettes, sure the this, sure the that. You don't need a phonograph, man. Unless you are trying to get some NYU pussy, you do not need a phonograph. Unless you are trying to get some of the nastiest gash known to Bushwick, there is no reason to own a phonograph in 2025. Unless you own a museum, unless you are an antiques collector, there is absolutely no reason to have a phonograph in your repertoire. But I mean, hey, if in 2025 you're still out here trying to hit Mumford and Son bitches, honestly, that's your life, and you live it however you think is best to you. So respect, I guess.
I don't know exactly how many other people in their early 20s like all this old analog stuff too, but it's definitely not zero.
No, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of it. Well, and I think to a certain extent, a big thing, probably the biggest thing, is it's a novelty. It's a novelty like anything else. Because anything from the past becomes a novelty at a certain point. Not everything, but like there's definitely plenty of things from the past that's nothing new. All throughout time, old things from the past have become a novelty. Hey, isn't it fun that we used to do things this way? And then usually you play around with it for 2 seconds and you're like, oh, fuck, yeah, that's why we stopped doing things this way. So that's all right. But then you kind of move on. But it's a novelty. It's something fun that you pull out every now and then to be like, haha, isn't this fun? And then you go live in the modern world. At least that's how it's supposed to work.
I've been seeing a bunch of ads recently for digital cameras that are supposed to look like film.
Yeah.
And I've seen people online that are...
Okay, well, here's the thing. Film will always look great. You can always tell when something is shot on film. You can always tell when a movie is shot on film. You know, it's a crazy good example of that nobody ever brings up. And also was just like a great movie that I surprisingly had a lot of fun with. Detective Pikachu. If anybody saw that, first off, shout out. I had a great time with that movie. I had a blast when I went to go see it in theaters. But that's a movie that you look at, and I remember one thing watching that really kind of got me. It was like, fuck, this was shot on film. And I can tell that this was shot on film, right? That will always be there. And there's kind of nothing you can take away from that. But then on the flip side, film, while it looks great, obviously, the actual meat and potatoes of it and the actual like dealings of it and dealing with it sucks. It fucking sucks. I can hear every single fucking handlebar mustache and flat build motherfucker typing away in the comments right now about no, it sucks. Dealing with film sucks. Loading film sucks. Unloading film sucks. Developing film sucks. Editing the film sucks. Dealing with film as a physical medium, actually dealing with it sucks. It's great when you're the director of the movie who goes, I want it to look cool, so shoot it on film. And then you show up every single day and you get to sit in your fun little chair and tell everybody around you what to do. You're not the one who actually has to deal with the meat and potatoes of like dealing with filming on film. The camera department has to deal with all that. And it is laborious. It is taxing. It sucks. It looks great, but dealing with it sucks. There is a reason, like back in the day for movie theaters, projectionists like used to have to you would show movies on film. You would show movies on these giant spools of film, and it was a craft that you learned. You had to learn how to get these films, how to load them, how to cut them together, how to splice them together with the ads and the trailers and do this, blah, 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 blah. It was an actual legitimate career because it was a skill that you had to learn and develop. right? Now, like I used to manage a movie theater. Now it's literally this giant hard drive. This is called here's a little fun fact for you. What movies come on now to movie theaters, if it's not on film, they come on something called a DCP. A DCP is a just giant hard drive, basically. And we plug that into our system computer. You load it onto the system, you schedule all the play times in a little app, and then you boom, send it off. That's it. It's so easy. It's so simple. Look, again, a film is great. I love the way it looks. There's nothing that can really top it or replace or take it away from it. But it's really easy to excuse me. It's really easy to sit on like an iron throne and say film is awesome. Everything should be shot on film. You should use film. It's really easy to say that from your fun director's chair and not so much from the back of the box truck that all the camera gear is in, that you're having to load everything in and out. And also just it's expensive. If you can afford to do it, great. But a lot of people can't. Shooting on film is fucking expensive. That's just the other aspect. So film is great. I love the way it looks. I will say there is a very good reason that the industry as a whole moved towards digital, and now shooting on film is kind of more of a niche. Again, like this is what I was saying originally about this before. Like it's something that you do every now. Oh, isn't this fun? Isn't this cool? But it can't just be like the blanket way, right?
Switching from smartphones back to flip phones because, social media just sucks. And then if you're talking about clothes, I mean, thrifting is a huge industry. I've seen so many people in my own generation whose whole personality is based on clothes and culture from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s.
Yeah, see, and then here's the other thing. First off, I've been on the thrifting wave forever. Forever, since childhood, since growing up. That's just called being poor. Let me phrase that real. Let's get that right out of the way. Oh, you love thrift. Oh, you love going thrifty. Yeah, dude, I love like clothes that I can afford. That's really kind of what it comes down to. There's no like niche or like it's kitschy or it's whatever. It's clothes that are within my price range, right? Like you're telling me I can go to the thrift store and I can get like 4 shirts and 2 pairs of pants for $20. Or I can go to wherever and I can spend $30 for 1 pair of pants. So, I mean, thrifting for me has always just been that. It's just been a price thing. It's like, these are clothes that I can afford. That's why I go thrifting. Now, another aspect of this, and he's talking kind of about it specifically, that kind of makes me sad. And I noticed this with kind of the Gen Z, Gen Alpha crowd, is they are so fucking steeped in nostalgia and things like thrifting culture that I feel like they don't get to have their signature kind of things, their signature fashion, their signature icons or whatever, because everything that's like screams them, everything that's trendy for them or that they're into kind of seems to be just shit from the past. Like, what's the most fashionable thing to wear as a young person? It's old clothes that you got from the thrift store. And it's like, no, dude, what's your guys' thing? Like, you guys like make something. You know what I mean? Like, this is what every generation does. Every generation makes their new thing. The generation behind them thinks it's stupid, and then that generation grows up. They look back and realize how stupid they were. This is tale as old as time. It's just wash, rinse, repeat, throughout all of humanity. But it just feels like once we got to like Gen Z, Gen Alpha kind of era, all of their stuff, quote unquote, is just stuff from the past. And I'm sitting there and it makes me sad because I look at them and I'm like, no, what is you? Like, what is your thing? Like, what is your generation's unique creation and contribution to everything? Right. And it just like, I don't know, it bums me out because I feel like they don't have that. I feel like all the things that define their style or their aesthetic or this or their whatever you want to call it is all just shit from yesteryear. And it's like, no, that was us. That was them. What is you? And I just, again, I feel like they don't really have that. And again, it bums me out.
Even the 2000s. Now, there's no one right answer for why people like the things that they do. I have my own reasons for liking old things. Other people might have their own reasons for liking old things. And this is a topic that can be talked about forever. But if you ask me why I like old things and why I think all these other younger people do two, I think the first thing I would mention is five. The five senses.
Oh,
You got sight, hearing, smell, touch, and okay, maybe just the first four. Yeah. All this old
no, taste is good too. The past had taste. The past had a very specific taste. It was mostly cigarettes, but there was a taste. It had a taste to it. I do kind of miss walking into a Bob Evans and it's like, oh yeah, here it's just nothing but 90-year-olds pounding Marlboros. That was great. Honestly, this is my hot take. 2025, we got to bring back smoking indoors. Not everywhere. Everywhere gets to decide on their own. But I think just with everything that we've been through and everything, look, I feel like we deserve it. I think we deserve it. I think I have earned it. I think you have earned it. I think we just need a little bit of light in our lives and just the tiniest little light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? I just need that little like peephole, that glimmer of shine, that there's something out there for me. There is something for me to grab onto and to aspire to, even if it's just a Pall Mall Red in the back of a Cracker Barrel. Even if it's just that, like you got to give us a little something. And I think smoking inside is something that we can all pull behind. And honestly, whoever runs for president next, put that on the ballot and you got me. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're like a cartoon demon. Fuck it. He's going to let me smoke in O'Charlie's again. I'm down, dude.
stuff, at least when it comes to objects, they're tactile. You can interact with them on a physical way.
Yeah.
All the clicks and dials and buttons and doohickeys, thingamabobs, whatchamacallits, whatever. And when you consider that I mostly grew up with this.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing is like he's showcasing it in all of this, but we used to have I guess kind of we had like a menagerie of devices that all kind of did their own specific thing. This was a record player. This is a tape player. This is a VHS. This is a TV, right? Like you kind of had to go and they were separated. These worlds and these functions were kind of separated. Since what, like 2010, somewhere in there, I would say probably 90% of everything that you consume on a day-to-day basis is more or less done from one, maybe two screens, right? For most people, probably just one for most people. 90% of what music, audiobooks, books, TV show, whatever, for most people, since the digital age, since kind of the 2010s, everything is now consumed through probably most people one screen, be it their phone, be it their iPad, be it whatever. Most people are consuming all information and all inputs and all media from one or two screens. When it used to kind of be a vast array and it used to kind of be like this rotating system, right? And I do think there is something to be said. I think there's a big thing. I do think there is a big argument to be made against maybe we shouldn't have immediate access to every single thing in the world at all times. Maybe that's not the greatest thing, and maybe it didn't play out as well as we thought that was going to be. You can get into all the social nuances and kind of the attitude that it creates and all this thing. Like I talk about this before, like when I was growing up, a friend of mine put me onto this quote where he was like, essentially, growing up, kind of like for people my age and my period, the world used to work that your tastes were more or less kind of formed around whatever physical media was immediately available to you. And that could be your parents' records, your parents' tapes, your parents' CDs. For the most part, it was your parents' stuff. Your parents would buy like movies and CDs and stuff for you. But for the most part, your taste and what you were into was kind of more or less just determined through whatever physical media you had access to. And that was mostly your parents' stuff. So whatever they had, you had, right? When you were a kid, all you watched, all you had access to was whatever happened to be on TV at the time and whatever tapes or DVD, whatever it was that you had. And that was it. That was it. If you wanted anything else, God damn it, I feel like an old man screaming at the cloud right now, but it's true. If you wanted anything else, you had to go somewhere. You had to go somewhere and you had to pray to God that they had it. If you wanted to watch that movie, you had to go to and you didn't have it, you didn't own it. You had to go to Blockbuster and you had to pray to God that that Blockbuster had that movie. There was a place to go get it. There was no promise that it was going to be there, right? So it was a little bit of a journey and it was a little bit of an adventure sometimes to find things that you wanted. You had to like call, you were making calls to all these places. I can't tell you how many times me or friends or whatever drove like an hour or two away to whatever random mall or whatever random shop because they were the only ones in the area that had this thing that we were looking for. You had to do that. Like that was just a regular thing that you had to do. And now it's just immediate access to anything at all times ever. And one of the things that I feel with that, like going back to talking about how, you know, all you had was like your parents' shit, whatever they had, and like all whatever. Because of that, because our access to stuff was so limited, because you only had whatever you had immediately in front of you, you were kind of forced to go in the past a little bit. Like growing up, I'm watching all these older TV shows, listening to all this older music, all this stuff. Why? Because that's just what I had. That was all that was on TV. That was all that was around. That was the only tapes or CDs or whatever that my parents had. So that's just what I listened to. So in that sense, with that, you know, system and the way that it works, you're kind of forced to go into the past and you're kind of forced to appreciate it a little bit. And that's a good thing because you should know. I mean, everybody should know history, just history of anything in general. But you should know like the history of music, of movies, of TV, like where these things started, where they came from. And when you're forced to do it as a young kid, it kind of gives you an appreciation for it. Now, if you're a kid now, if you're, say, like 12 years old right now in 2025, you have never known a life where you don't have immediate access to whatever you want to watch, whatever you want to listen to, whatever, at the push of a button. Your life has never not known that. You have never experienced not being able to access something, more or less. You know, obviously there's certain things that may be not on streaming or whatever, but like for the most part, you have had immediate access to whatever you could ever want at the push of a button your entire life, right? And so because of that, you have no reason to go in the past. You have no reason to delve into the older stuff. You have no reason to earn and like learn and grow this appreciation for it and learn history and where things come from and where we've been and all because you've never been forced to. Anything that you've ever wanted, you just press a button and it's right there. And I don't think that's the greatest thing to have happen, right? Like I don't think that that's a good thing. I think you should be forced a little bit. Like that's, I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to sound like your dad, but like that's kind of why you go to school. Like nobody wants to sit down and learn how to do math or learn history or learn all these things, but like you need to do it. Like it's good. And I think that same notion can be extended to things like media and art. Like, yes, you should be forced back to watch some of this older stuff, to listen to some of this older stuff, to appreciate it and see where all of this stuff comes from and watch the progression. That's just an important part of like being a whole well-rounded person and somebody who enjoys art, right? A well-rounded enjoyer of all forms of media and art should know things like history and roots and all that. And I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm not, you know, a sociologist. I'm not a child psychologist or anything, but I feel like that's a big element that's being lost like in great mass with a lot of younger people. I don't know.
It starts to make sense. Sometimes it can feel like the whole world is stuck behind glass when I'm constantly on my phone.
Yeah.
But when I use something that's older and analog, it kind of brings me back into the real world. You know, I think human beings are kind of just built for tactile feedback. It's just the basics of how we all interact with the world, with our senses. Now, I've had older people tell me, oh, why would you want to go back and use all that old junk I was forced to use when I was growing up? Things are so much better now. You can access anything at any time, anywhere.
Right.
Why would you ever want to revert back? Well,
Willie want unlimited access. Is he just about to go into the tangent that I
now all
just
this
went off
unlimited
on?
information, I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, but a lot of times it feels like a monsoon. It's so much.
Yeah.
Since you can know everything all at once, it just can be a bit much.
Yeah, and that's the same. I mean, streaming services, a lot of them, I mean, not so much now, but definitely in the beginning, but I mean, still, they don't prioritize quality. They don't prioritize like actual good content. That's not what's on their radar. It happens and they do pick up and put out some good stuff, but that's not priority. That's not what they're going for because that's not how they make money, right? Like one of the big things that people have pointed out is, that say there's a show on Netflix that you love and it went for 2 or 3 seasons and then it abruptly got canceled. It's like, why did they do that? Even if the show is doing well, why did they do that and all these things? Because they're not interested in longevity of programming. That's not what makes them money. The subscriber model makes money by trying their best to draw in as many new subscribers as possible. That's what generates revenue. Not keeping around old people for shows that they've loved for forever. There's no interest in that. That's not what drives up revenue. Getting new shows and new movies and cool, exciting things in, that's what draws in new subscribers, and that's how they make their money. So, I mean, yeah, so there is just this sense with most of streaming services of just pump, 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 pump. And sometimes when you do that, you strike gold and some good does come through and it gets picked up. But I mean, it immediately gets slashed after 2 or 3 years because, again, it's just a pump, pump, pump. And there's only so much room within, whatever respective streaming service. So, I mean, yeah, no, you have unlimited access, and yeah, it becomes so much. Like he said, it becomes a monsoon. You can have so much variety that it becomes too much of a good thing. It's like going to a restaurant and you look at the menu and it all looks great, but there's 20 million things and you're like, how do I decide? And sometimes it's just got to be like, it's like going back to like when TV was still a thing. Like TV, like you had no choice. This is what was on at this time. So you're either going to watch it or you're going to watch something else or you're going to turn off the TV. So make your choice, bucko. And that's kind of how it was. And to a certain extent, that was kind of a good thing. I also think that might be a good thing in that it probably forced a lot of people to turn off the TV. How many times you're channel surfing and you're looking through whatever and there is just nothing on, you turn it off and go to do something else. If you're scrolling on your phone and there's nothing interesting, there are 20 million other places that you can go that I guarantee you will have something that you find interesting. There's no incentive to turn it off. Whereas kind of with cable or TV, whatever you want to call it, there was, and that doesn't exist anymore.
But using things pre-internet, it takes me away from that. It gives my mind a break. And all these things, listening to music on vinyl, taking film photos, using a typewriter, it just calms my mind. Streaming services.
Yeah.
Netflix, Spotify, Disney Plus, Peacock, all of them that are way too expensive and really annoying. In a lot of ways, they're great. I mean, who doesn't want everything on demand? But in recent years, they've been adding more ads and raising the prices and then adding more ads on top of that. And it's all just kind of culminating into what cable TV used to be, but in a way more expensive way.
Yeah, kind of. Well, I mean, also not so much. I mean, cable, people were paying like 60, $70 a month for cable, right? I do not pay, like, what do I have? I have Prime, I have Hulu, I have Max, I have Disney Plus, I have Paramount Plus, I feel like there's one I'm missing here. I feel like that, but I own at least those. I own at least 5. I don't spend $60 a month on streaming services. I don't. I did the math, and it was like the Netflix, or sorry, the Max and the Hulu and the Disney Plus are a bundle. The Netflix is $8 a month with ads. Paramount is, again, I think like $8 a month with ads. I don't spend. People try to compare it with cable, and I understand. I get where the comparisons are coming from, but let me say it with this: I don't pay anywhere near as much as I would have with cable for what I have now. And 2, again, kind of the thing with cable was whatever was on was forced upon you. This is what's on now, and you're going to watch it, like it or not. The thing, at least, you have with streaming is the ability to select. So I think that's kind of the thing that really separates it when people, like when we have this discussion and people start comparing it to cable and the like. I think the ability to select whatever you want to watch is a big differentiator in there. And I don't think people acknowledge that enough.
You don't have control over whatever is on one of these platforms.
Yeah, no, they can just, I mean, completely, I mean, you can buy it, obviously, you can buy a digital version, but when you're, yes, when you're talking streaming services, yeah, I mean, there's contracts, things shuffle in and out like it does. Now, it doesn't mean that it's like gone. Again, like you can still buy it, you can still download it from where you can even pirate it, but it's not like, in this dramatic sense, gone. It's just not on that streaming service currently. And there's a good chance it'll probably be back at some point. Again, things shuffle in and out. It's what, and here's the thing, so many people talk about the death of physical media and they want to blame streaming services and they want to blame companies and all this stuff and yada yada, which fair enough. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest culprit and the biggest person to blame, I think the biggest person to blame for the death of physical media is the consumer. I think it's us. We are the ones at the end of the day who are truly to blame for the end of physical media. Companies only do what makes money. They only do what's profitable, and they only sell what you're buying, right? So you have like all these companies don't make Blu-rays anymore. Best Buy has stopped carrying any and all physical media and all this stuff, yada yada yada. And the reason is because we're not buying them. We're not. And that's because of streaming, and that's because of the internet, and that's because the access that the internet gives us to these titles, right? So in a roundabout way, yes, streaming is the purpose and why it's being killed. But at the end of the day, if we were still buying physical media would still be thriving, but we're not. So they're scaling it back and shutting it down. So you can't really be mad. It's like Best Buy isn't going to sell Blu-rays anymore. It's like, yeah, because we're not buying Blu-rays. So you can't really be too mad at Best Buy when it's the consumers not buying them or the reason that they're not selling them anymore. It's just, it's this weird kind of twisted logic that's always kind of gotten me with that. I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to defend, multi-billion-dollar corporations or anything, but also at the end of the day, like I said, they only sell what we buy. They are only interested in what makes them money. We stopped giving them money for physical media, therefore they're kind of scaling it back and stopping it. And then that's the craziest part. You have been able to buy physical media this whole time. Name any movie or TV show, even a lot of this just like purely streaming ones, have physical media releases. Like they all come out on Blu-ray, DVD, whatever. You can buy physical media. Excuse me. You can buy physical media of any movie or TV show that you want, more or less. If it's super small, whatever, it might not have gotten like an actual DVD release or the like. But I mean, physical media has still been produced this entire time, right? It has still been going. We have just not been buying it. So, I mean, people complain about physical media is dying. Dude, it's there. It was right there sitting on the shelves the whole time. Nobody was picking it up. So Best Buy is just going to stop carrying it. Again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm defending fucking Best Buy. I'm not like defending a business, but you can't really yell at them too much for doing for not carrying shit that doesn't sell anymore. I feel like that's a little misguided. Well, and here's another thing with the internet, and if you specifically want to talk about preservation, this is a twisted thing. I don't understand what the logic exactly is supposed to be with this, but I hear this all the time. I hear all the time about how the internet is terrible for archiving and, holding things and keeping things present. It's this horrible way of actually doing a database and yeah. But on the other hand, people say that the internet is forever. If you post something, it's online forever. Okay, so which one is it? It has to be one of the two, and I hear both all the time. So, which one is it? Also, you want to talk about terrible ways to actually, preserve things and keep them around? Let's talk about physical media. Let's talk about, you guys talk about missing media all the time. Shit that, you just can't find anymore, that just doesn't exist anymore. Movies, commercials, TV shows, whatever. The reason that you can't find those things anymore is because the masters for them rotted in a basement somewhere. That's the other thing that people miss when we talk about physical media is physical media has an absolute shelf life. Unless you are taking absolute master care of all of these things, physical media has a shelf life. And I guess to a certain extent things on the internet do as well, but if you upload a movie to Google Drive and Google Drive continues to exist for the entirety of man, that movie is there. It's there for all of time as long as Google Drive exists. Like, I mean, I don't know. Again, like there is definitely arguments to be made about how the internet is bad for preservation, but there's also just as many arguments to be made about how physical media is bad, dude. And it's been proven time and time again. It's the reason you can't find like half of the original Doctor Who episodes. Like when it first aired in the UK, nobody gave a shit. It didn't pop off. It wasn't a hit. And they took all of these episodes and all of these masters and it was on film and they just shoved it in a basement somewhere at the BBC and they rotted there for decades and they're just gone. They're just gone. You nobody can watch those episodes ever again because the physical media of it rotted in a basement away. So that's another component to keep in mind when we talk about stuff like this.
There's pretty much an entire industry of nostalgia, especially recently with all these never-ending movie remakes and reboots being made. It's a huge reason why the phrase "what's old is new" exists.
Yeah, well, I mean, nostalgia has 100, like I said in the beginning, nostalgia has 100% poisoned the waters of at least America. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but at least America, it has absolutely poisoned the waters and everywhere. And it's just because shit sucks right now. And shit has sucked for a while. And so we want to go back to this time where we at least thought it was better, or at the very least it was better for us individually. Right. Which for a lot of people, that's childhood. Because when you're a child, you have no worries. You have no cares. You have no bills to pay, no job. Everything's just like wild and free. So it's like you don't really miss the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles like that. You miss being a child. Right. You miss when the world didn't suck and we didn't have to worry about pandemics and wars and this and that and the blah, 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 blah. That's what you miss. You don't there isn't this deep-seated longing for cat dog. You know what I mean? There's a deep-seated longing for a sense of like hope and freedom and to not be burdened. That's really what I think most of your Funko Pop collection like truly comes down to, if we're being honest with ourselves. But I mean, again, the answer to things being bad and shit and the world around you sucking is doing everything that you can to push forward and make the world a better place. It's not to bury your head in the sand of 90s Saturday morning cartoons. It's not to let nostalgia consume you and just be like, if I close my eyes and I go back and then just everything's okay. I'll just like, I close my eyes and it's 1995 and I'm playing laser tag and everything's good. No, like go out and do something and do good and do whatever you can as an individual person, which may not be a lot, but do whatever you can to make the world a better place and help right wrongs and help fix whatever. Don't don't just like consume your life with trips to Disney World. Just fucking do something.
I think there's just something about using a thing that was part of everyday history from 50 or 100 years ago that allows you to live the same experience that the original owner of that thing would experience in a time that is now part of history.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, I think this is a weird point. So this is something I've talked to other people about before, like a point I've made before, where, like I've stated before, I was born in 1990, right? My generation specifically is the last group as, like, in our youth as children, we were the last group of children to experience at least some form of an analog upbringing. The first half, up until about the age of like 13 or so, my life and the world around me, for the most part, was still analog. Cell phones existed, but not smartphones. And they, weren't like they were, today or whatever. Cell phones existed, not smartphones. The internet was around, but it was slow and weird. And a lot of people didn't have it in their homes. You usually kind of had to go to a library or like a cafe or something to use it. It wasn't like this immediate thing that like most of us had access to. You know what I mean? So, yeah, for the vast majority of the world, it was still analog. But then we hit about like 2003 or so, I want to throw it in there. And that was kind of the period of like, okay, everybody kind of has internet in their home now. It's kind of a regular thing and become like a part of our actual daily lives. Again, nowhere near what it is now, but that was kind of the period of like, okay, yes, the internet is here. It's real. It's a thing. We all now kind of have access to it. Let's figure this out, right? But even then, it was still, for the most part, pretty analog. We still use CDs, we still use DVDs or tapes, and all this whatever. But the internet was this thing that was kind of there. And then MP3 players came along, and that's when you kind of start to go, like, we started like, okay, like life, and now music is digital. Now consuming music has become like this digital experience. That I kind of feel like was the first big foray, right? But even then, even in like the age of iPods, the original iPods, it was digital. It wasn't analog, but you still had to have a sense of ownership, right? The files that you put onto that iPod, most of them you would get from CDs that you own. You would rip the CD to your computer to then put it on your iPod, or you went to iTunes or wherever and downloaded the MP3. Even though it was still digital, there was still this sense of ownership that you had to have to it, right? There was still this element of like, you don't have immediate access. It's just whatever I have is still whatever I have. It's just in a digital form now, right? And then after that, man, you hit like 2005, 2006, LimeWire, dude. I can't even get into it. Don't even get me started on that shit. And it was just all downhill from there. But yeah, dude, I mean, the first 13 years or so of my life was still a completely analog world. And my generation was kind of the last to have any sense of an analog upbringing. So, I mean, yeah, anybody born past like, born past like 2002, 2003, you've never really known much of an analog life. But see, that's what I'm talking about. This guy said he's in his early 20s, right? So he's born somewhere in that range. I think another reason that they're so nostalgic for it is because during the guys his age, people his age, this is exactly what I was talking about. During their childhood, it was there, but it was on the way out. Right? These guys, the analog wasn't a part of their daily life, but it was still there. They were aware of it. There was maybe a thing or two in the house that they still used or whatever, but it was there. So these guys, even though analog wasn't a part of their daily life, it was like this kind of fleeting, God, I've got the hiccups. It was still kind of like this fleeting presence in their life. And now combined with the horrors of like, the internet age and all this stuff, the nostalgia for it, I think, makes a lot more sense now. Once you kind of put everything into context. And yeah, again, that element that I feel like a lot of people like I said before, they weren't analog in their day-to-day life and like consumption of things, but it was something that was just kind of like in the background and slowly like backing out of the room that is their life. Right? It was something there. And when you're a kid, there's a weird little fascination with stuff like that. It's like, wait, what is that? Like that thing? Wait, you guys used to like listen to music on that thing? And then poof, it's gone because now iPods are anywhere. So yeah, I think the nostalgia with all of that context put in kind of makes a lot of sense. I'll take you to the county fair. You can give me pussy in the back of the stagecoach. Oh, I love that county fair. Stagecoach pussy, county fair, stagecoach pussy at St. Louis in St. Louis. Stage fair couch pussy. All right. Anyway, that was enough of that. Holy shit. All right. Well, we went on a magical journey with this tonight. We had a damn good time. I think we worked through a lot here tonight. I think we're all better people for it. Not me, you guys. I will never be a better person. I'll never get better for you.
As she's unable to drive, she can only go as far as her scooter will take her.
This
means that she often goes through the fast food drive-thrus.
Dude, that's okay. No, I don't know if you guys know this or know how this works.
Hi, yeah. I'd like a 20-piece nuggets.
Dude, okay. I don't know if you guys know how this works. But when you go through the drive-thru, like if you or I were to just walk up to the drive-thru and stand there, nothing would happen because it wouldn't register us, because it only registers by weight. Once a certain amount of weight pulls up to the drive-thru. There's a sensor underneath the car that says, hey, there's something heavy as shit on top of me. It's probably a car. You should take their order. This lady is setting off that sensor in her scooter. She is rolling up, just her and the fat ass dog. How is that not a wake-up call?
The seriousness of the infection shocks her, as she didn't realize just how dangerous her weight was and the implications it was having on her body.
You didn't realize how dangerous your weight was? Lady, I sound like a broken record with this. You set off the car sensor at McDonald's. Go to the hospital now. Immediately. Like yesterday. The McDonald's thinks you're a car. A robot thinks you're a car. You stepped on a robot and it thinks you're a car. Go to the emergency room. Like I would watch My 600 Pound Life, and there's so many people on the show that would talk about like past trauma and past things that happened. And that's kind of how they got to where they were with eating addiction. But I personally, I'm not even trying to like sound shitty or insensitive or whatever. I just never could understand the connection between like, yeah, I got molested and now I'm crazy for these dino nuggies, man. I just didn't draw the bridge. But like, food is a comfort in almost the same way that drugs can be. It is a comfort. It is a calm. It's a friend. It's something that's always there. And I didn't realize that at the time. And like somebody like actually explained and broke it down to me. And I went, thank you for that. I received a public education in high school. I received a public education in Ohio in the mid 2000s. And like I can barely read. So pardon me if I didn't understand the complexities of like human emotions and trauma. I don't know what you want from me, man. Like, look, I'm going to be real with you. I'm an aging white guy from Ohio. I feel the NASCAR fandom like growing inside of me. Like I know it's around the corner. So just don't ask me for the answer to anything. Dude, Long Island is horrible. It sucks. I mean, like I don't go over there a ton. I have jobs that take me over there with the film stuff. So I mean, like I have to pop in there every now and then a decent amount. It just well, the first reason that it sucks is you go over there and it just looks like every suburban America. It looks like Columbus, Ohio. It looks like Des Moines, Iowa, because every suburb in America just all looks the same, right? Like if you are living in Long Island, New York, you might as well be living in Madison, Wisconsin. Like day to day, there truly is no real difference. The only benefit is you have New York City right there. And that's cool. That's great. Like that is the actual real benefit of like living in Long Island is immediate access to New York and this major metropolitan area. But just day to day, yeah, it looks like everywhere else in America. It looks like every other shitty suburb in America. And dude, you go there and like you know who lives on Long Island? People who are from Brooklyn and got too racist for Brooklyn. That's who went to Long Island. That's who had children. That's who bought property and started families on Long Island. Are people who were born and raised in wherever Brooklyn or wherever Queens, and then two black people moved in and they were like, we got to get out of here. We got to get on a train and just go. And now their seed has spread throughout the entire land. From Montauk to wherever the fuck the Long Island starts. I just know that that's where it ends. It's a horrible, terrible place that nobody should ever go to.
Steven just got a prescription filled. And it's hydrocodone, and it was 100 count, and they're gone. So he took the equivalent to knock out an elephant. I think that he have a slight problem.
Towards the end of the episode, Doctor now reaches out.
Is nobody considering the fact that there's a good chance he's selling them too? I mean, this guy can't work. He's got 100, what was that, like oxys on him? And you think he took all of them? You think that man took, look, he's a big dude, as a big boy. I don't think there's anybody out there who has survived 100 Oxycontins big, right? I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I want to get kicked out of a Chinese buffet so bad. Not for like misbehaving or anything, but I want to eat so much at a Chinese buffet that they kick me out. From the bottom of my soul, I want to do that so bad. That is so powerful to me. that I can eat so much that I have to be physically removed from an establishment, I'm a god, dude. That is, you cannot touch me after that. Bro, I literally ate so many spring rolls that the police had to get involved. Do you understand how powerful I am, motherfucker? I will look at you and you will crumble, okay? I ate so much sesame chicken that legislation had to get brought up, all right? So don't come to me with your bullshit.